Hello, my name is Itzel Corona Aguilar, and I will be giving a presentation on the New York State Dream Act. This presentation is for students, undocumented students, and other students who are eligible to receive state aid funding to go to college. The New York State Dream Act was initiated in January 2019 by a group of young undocumented advocates and students and organizers who advocated for a type of legislation that would allow undocumented students to pursue higher education without having to deal with the challenges and barriers of hefty tuition costs, inability to have employment to pay for those, or having to have some form of employment that is more than 40 hours a week just to be able to maintain the tuition costs. This presentation will guide students through the application process from start to beginning. It will provide some tips, information about the New York State Dream Act, how to prepare, and some of the services that we provide at Unlocal. Unlocal is a community, immigration, and legal services organization based in New York City. This organization is responsible for the position I currently hold as the New York State Dream Act Fellow. Part of my job is to present and educate students, counselors, high school teachers, anyone who is interested about what the New York State Dream Act is and how to apply. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that you need to know is just a general overview of the New York State Dream Act. Currently, in the state of New York, U.S. citizens or permanent residents have access to admission, federal financial aid, in-state and out-of-state tuition, grants, loans, and scholarships, and also SAT fee waivers. If you're familiar with the status known as DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, then you know that it is a temporary work authorization that is for young people who are eligible based on certain criteria, such as moving to the country before the age of 16, graduating from being it usually is a type of status that is available to young undocumented immigrants who migrated to the U.S. at a young age. Currently, the program is not available for new applications, and it is currently also being contested in the Supreme Court on whether the program can continue. So there's currently only access for submitting renewal applications and not any new applications at this time. But if you are a DACA recipient, in the state of New York, you have access to admissions, but you don't have access to federal financial aid, which means you don't have access to receive money from the national government, the money that comes from Washington, D.C. However, thanks to the New York State Dream Act, if you're a DACA recipient, you do have access to in-state and out-of-state tuition, meaning that you can get access to the pools of money that come from the state of New York. In regards to grants, loans, and scholarships, this really depends on the individual scholarships, grants, and loans. Some of them are specific for undocumented students, while others tend to forget undocumented students altogether. SAT fee waivers are also eligible. DACA recipients are also eligible to receive SAT fee waivers. In addition to DACA recipients, anyone who identifies as undocumented, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this in detail, also has access to admission, but like DACA recipients, does not actually have access to federal financial aid or grants, loans, and scholarships. Like I said, depending on the scholarship, some are specifically for undocumented students, while others might only think about students who are DACA recipients and not undocumented without DACA. It is important to note here that not all immigration statuses are represented in here, but we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about that in just a second. Some of the key points that you should know about the New York State DREAM Act is that it was passed in January 2019. Undocumented students who attended college in New York State can apply for state funding through programs like TAP and Excelsior, which we'll talk more about. Undocumented students can also qualify for the Excelsior Scholarship. And the online portal is an application that is available on the user guide through the HESC website. I'm sorry, there's an application and a user guide that are both available on the HESC website. And one application is used for all of the scholarships. And we're gonna actually show you some screenshots here in just a minute on what the actual portal looks like. To actually visit the application, visit hesc.newyork.gov/dream. The eligibility requirements for the New York State DREAM Act is that you must live in New York State and you have, if you live in New York State, you must have one of the following. You should have a U visa, which is a type of visa that is typically given to survivors of intimate partner violence. A T visa is survivors of trafficking. Deferred and forced departure is actually a type of program that is similar to DACA. TPS, temporary protected status, is a type of status that is given to people whose home countries are not in conditions where they can have fulfilling lives due to war, natural disasters, political issues in their country. TPS is a type of status for that. And if you are, of course, undocumented or have DACA, you are eligible to receive the New York State DREAM Act. Statuses like asylum, refugee, actually would not be eligible for the New York State DREAM Act because you would be applying for the regular method for funding for federal and state funds, which asylum and refugee status recipients can have access to. You would go through the regular method, which is FAFSA, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. In addition to the status criteria, there are also eligibility requirements that refer to having attended an undergraduate program within 5 years of receiving a New York State high school diploma or received a New York State high school equivalency diploma, TASC GED. This is often what is referred to as the high school equivalency diploma, TASC or GED. You also either attended a graduate program within 10 years of receiving a New York State high school diploma, or you're a student who was charged New York State resident in-state tuition rate at a SUNY or CUNY college. So you must meet one of these 3 criteria. The application process itself currently has the organization that runs the New York State DREAM Act application. Their offices are closed due to COVID-19, but they continue to work remotely and answer calls. You can send all your questions to an email below at nysdream@apply.ists.com to send in questions about your application. Maybe you've already submitted and you want to hear updates about when you will know about your awards. They did post something on their website that speaks to some delays due to the virus, but I have had experience in the last few weeks with students hearing back pretty regularly to what was the response before the pandemic. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Let's continue here. The application process, I've really broken it down into 3 main parts. The first part is really just gathering all your documents. You should get on hand access to a New York State high school transcript with your graduation date or expected graduation date. If you have a transcript that doesn't clearly mark those dates, you should also include your high school diploma. You should have approval status. If you're undocumented, you wouldn't include anything, but if you have DACA or if you have TPS, make sure you have proof of that status and your 2018 tax return. This is something that a lot of students have experienced some barriers in getting access to tax returns. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we continue with the presentation. But if you do not have your taxes filed for 2018, it's important to reach out to Unlocal and to our number at 646-216-8210 to get more information about how you can submit taxes through what's called a TIN number, and we'll talk more about that in detail. The second step is really just completing the New York State HESC program eligibility application, which is the first part of the New York State DREAM Act application. And then the last part is completing all the individual scholarship applications like TAP and Excelsior, which I'm going to show you here. Some general tips for completing the application are that all of the transcripts and other official documents that include should black out all of the personal information from you or your parents who might be undocumented. You should remove the street address and any parent names visible on the documentation. You can use unofficial transcripts, but they should show your full name and your grades received. And like I mentioned previously, if the graduation date or expected graduation date is not clearly marked, then you must include your New York State high school diploma. If you completed the high school equivalency test or GED, make sure that your ID from the diploma is clearly present. Each of those diplomas have an ID that you have to input into the New York State DREAM Act portal. The other tips include that all files that are acceptable for the portal include PDF, TIF, PNG, JPEG, JPG, BMP, and XPS. If you're including multiple files, for example, like the transcript and the high school diploma, you must include them all together in a zip folder. Both of these addresses marked down below, do not reply at apply@ists.com and New York State DREAM at apply@ists.com should be added to your contact list to prevent any kind of correspondence be sent to your spam or trash. Here's what the portal actually looks like. And when you start the application, the eligibility portal is going to look exactly like this. It's going to say New York State DREAM Act application started. You're going to click on there and you're going to begin your application. Once you've completed the entire application, you really must make sure to follow this checklist up above before you continue on to the second section. So what I'm going to do here is pause temporarily for a second and show you what the actual portal looks like and what the beginning process of the application is. So here you would go into the HESC website at hesc.ny.gov. You would click on here to apply now. Down here, here's where the user guide available in 4 different languages. Apply now. I've gone ahead and created an account for us. So you're going to go ahead and click on here. As you can tell, I haven't completed this section, but where it says you would fill in your first name, last name, your date of birth. You'll be asked if you've been known by any other names, marital status, zip code, your student grade level, if you identify with being first year, if you've never attended college. It's going to also ask you for your high school and your high school student ID number. If you are a part of any of these programs or have been accepted to any of these programs, and then you're actually going to be including your high school transcript here, which will be uploaded, like I mentioned, in a zip file. right here. You would click on here to affirm that you agree to the disclosure and consent, sign your name, and submit the application. Once you've submitted that, you would click on here to the next page. You can also go back to the home page, actually. And here is where you're going to see all of the individual scholarship applications. The main ones that we're going to talk about here are TAP and Excelsior. TAP is not available yet. So you go scroll down, click select TAP 2021 to 2020 to 2021. Apply now. Scroll down, and you would fill in this information about the TAP application that the TAP application asks you to fill out. Similar to the first part, include your name, primary cell phone numbers. You actually have to have your college, the college that you're expected to attend, along with a college ID number that the school has provided for you, because any of your funds are actually going to be sent directly through your college. It's going to ask you about your dependency status. You will have to put your 2018 tax information here. You are required to upload, depending on each individual case, you might be asked to put information on your taxes, which is most likely going to happen, or you'll be asked to include a tuition bill statement from one of the SUNY or CUNY school systems. You complete your signature, submit the application. So let's go ahead and return to our presentation so I can continue to give you some more information. After you've completed that first part, you'd get this message that I said here. Here is what I showed you. In 2020, there will be a total of 25 programs. So that means that there will be 25 individual scholarship applications. Unfortunately, due to the current public health crisis, there's been a delay in making the Excelsior application available on the portal. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. TAP is a tuition assistance program that many students will be eligible for. It requires a student to provide information on when they are enrolled in college. So if you apply to LaGuardia, Oswego, whatever schools that you've been accepted to, make sure that you have that college ID ready on hand. The TAP assistance program, the tuition assistance program, actually provides up to $5,165 annually. So one of the important things to do is check in with, do a little bit of research with yourself, with the colleges that you're interested in going. Check out the tuition expenses, room and board, because one of the things that many students expect is that the awards that they receive will cover everything. And there are ways for you to strategize this, but it's important to do a little bit of research on each of the colleges that you're interested in attending. The other program application that I mentioned already is Excelsior. Excelsior is different than TAP because, unlike TAP, Excelsior is the duration of the years that you receive the Excelsior Award must require you to stay in the New York State and work in the New York State for the time that you receive the award. If you relocate after you finish college and you do not stay in New York and work in the New York State, the award turns into a loan that you have to pay back. And TAP is not something that you pay back. So you have to keep that in mind. In addition to that, the tax income maximum that your family can claim for the TAP award is $80,000. For Excelsior, it's $125,000. That means that income ceilings for TAP are for $80,000 for dependent undergraduate students, or independent students who are married and have tax dependents, or independent students who are married and have tax dependents. $10,000 actually is the income ceiling for unmarried independent undergraduate students with no tax dependents. And the income ceilings for Excelsior, like I mentioned, are $125,000. So you will be asked to provide your tax documentation as proof of income. Once you've completed the TAP, the Excelsior, and the New York State PESC program eligibility portal, you'll be able to complete all three, and it will show a green button that's marked as complete. If you need help applying for the New York State DREAM Act, Unlocal will be offering individualized help, so make sure to contact me at itzel@unlocal.org. Currently, I am offering consultations remotely through Zoom, FaceTime, over the phone, but typically we hold consultations at our office, and while our offices remain closed, I am currently doing them remotely. So just a summary again, some things that you can do to prepare is gather all your documents, your high school transcript, your high school equivalency diploma, your proof of status, and your 2018 tax return. If you have any questions or want to know about how you can get support with the application process, please feel free to schedule a consultation with Unlocal. You can call 646-216-82110 on Tuesdays and Thursdays to leave a message, or you can email me directly at itzel@unlocal.org, and we can help you complete and submit the entire application. A few things that I want to say before we end this tutorial is a lot of students, especially undocumented students, have questions about federal financial aid. Like I mentioned, currently there is not a legislation or a law that allows undocumented students to receive federal financial aid, which means money to go to college from the national government, the money that comes from Washington. So one of the forms that is used to determine your access to federal financial aid is FAFSA. Students who are not eligible for federal aid, depending on their process, can still fill out FAFSA. FAFSA gives you a student aid report, also known as an SAR, which can be used to apply for scholarships or institutional aid. If you're not an eligible student, maybe you have DACA or you're undocumented, and you receive any kind of federal funding, you should return it immediately. Some of the challenges to filling out FAFSA are that undocumented students and their families may not have Social Security numbers to file a FAFSA. They also might be fearful of reporting their tax or financial information because of their immigration status. And many families do pay taxes via ITIN numbers assigned by the IRS, while others do not or have inaccuracies with their past tax reports. So it's always recommended to print a copy of your FAFSA and submit the printed copy. If a DACA student does have a Social Security number, they should include it with their application, and they should fill out a FAFSA form as early as possible. They can also ask their parents to request an IRS transcript. For FAFSA and undocumented students, you should not submit a FAFSA online. You should use College Board's CSS profile, which can be used to do in-house calculations for individual scholarships or private institutions, along with other types of programs that might want to determine your College Board profile. Basically, it determines the amount of money that you need to go to college. So you can fill out a paper copy of FAFSA as well, and this can be used, like I said, to submit to individual institutions for in-house calculations. Counselors should also inform schools when they are submitting the CSF profile or paper copy of FAFSA. If you are a student who does not have a Social Security number, you should include all zeros in this number 8 section of the FAFSA form. If you are a student with undocumented parents, make sure that you include all zeros for your parents' Social Security number. Do not use the ITIN number. Parents should also sign a printed form rather than use 4-digit PIN electronic signature. You can also request your transcript from the IRS before filling out. If your parents do not have an ITIN number, they can apply one for one using the W-7 form found on the irs.gov website, or by calling 311, or by calling 646-216-8210 to get more information about how to apply for taxes using your ITIN number. And it's important to know that we have never heard of a family being deported due to filling out the FAFSA form. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to me at itzel@unlocal.org. Some alternatives to federal aid are, of course, the New York State DREAM Act, which allows students to receive funding from the state level. Many scholarships are also open to students regardless of immigration status, and some, like I mentioned, are created specifically for undocumented students. To follow our list of scholarships, visit tinyurl.com/unlocalscholarships. It is very important to plan ahead financially, sometimes as early as 9th grade. Many of the realities of undocumented students need to be discussed. Currently, the state laws and policies across the U.S. vary. As you can see in this chart, states that are marked a darker shade of green are states with tuition equity laws or policies and some state financial aid, like the state of Texas, New York, Minnesota, Washington, and California. While other states like Alabama and South Carolina and Georgia are states that ban enrollment to undocumented students, or states where certain college systems deny enrollment altogether. If you're considering moving after high school, make sure you do some research about the places that you're moving to, so you know the kind of institutional representation that might or might not exist. The other thing is that about 98,000 of undocumented students graduate high school every year. Unfortunately, only about 7.5% go on to enroll in college, and even fewer graduate successfully. These numbers show a dramatic decrease in the amount of students who enroll into high school every year and graduate high school every year in comparison to those who actually enroll in college, and even less who graduate successfully. If you have any questions or need more information about the New York State DREAM Act, how to apply, please reach out to us, like I said, at 646-212-8210. You can also follow us at our Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram to get up-to-date information about the New York State DREAM Act and any of the other services that Unlocal provides. We currently are doing New York State DREAM Act live streams every few weeks to give updates and provide students more information about this process. Thank you, and I hope this tutorial has been useful.